Have you ever been told that humans only use 10% of their brains? It's a phrase that's echoed through popular culture for decades, whispered in classrooms, repeated by motivational speakers, and turned into the premise of blockbuster movies, where characters unlock the hidden 90% and suddenly become geniuses, develop telekinetic powers, or transcend space and time. The idea is seductive. After all, who wouldn't want to believe they're walking around with a supercomputer in their skull that's barely being used? But here's the truth. The 10% myth is not only wrong, it dramatically underestimates the power of your brain. Because the reality is far more complex and far more exciting. Neuroscience has proven, beyond any doubt, that we already use 100% of our brain. Not all at once, but over time and in very intricate ways. And once you understand what that really means, you'll start to see that the true mystery isn't what we're not using. It's how we're using what we already have. Let's rewind to where this myth may have started. One common origin story links the 10% claim to American psychologist William James, who once wrote that, "We are making use of only a small part of our possible mental and physical resources." That statement, philosophical in nature, was meant to inspire growth, not measure brain activity. But it was misquoted, misunderstood, and repeated so often that it morphed into a false scientific fact. Later, in the early 1900s, neurologists were just beginning to map the brain. When probing certain areas electrically or studying brain injuries, they noticed that some regions didn't appear to produce obvious results. But the technology at the time was limited. They couldn't see the brain in action the way we can now. So some assumed that if stimulation didn't cause movement or speech, maybe those areas weren't doing anything. That assumption was dead wrong. What we now know is that much of the brain operates behind the scenes, integrating data, processing context, regulating internal systems, and maintaining balance. Just because it's quiet doesn't mean it's inactive. Fast forward to today, and we have tools like functional magnetic resonance imaging, fMRI, that let us see which areas of the brain are active in real time. And what these scans show is remarkable. Even the simplest task, like recognizing a face or reading a word, activates multiple brain regions working together. When you sit in silence and daydream, your brain is still active, engaging the default mode network. When you sleep, your brain doesn't shut down. It enters phases that help with memory consolidation, emotional processing, and cellular repair. There are no dormant lobes, no giant sections waiting to be awakened. In fact, injuries to even small brain regions can have devastating consequences. If we really only use 10% of our brain, then damage to the remaining 90% should go unnoticed. But that's not the case. Every part of the brain serves a function, even if it's one we're just beginning to understand. Here's an example. Let's say you're watching a movie. Your visual cortex is processing the colors and motion. Your auditory cortex is deciphering sound. The limbic system is handling your emotional response to the plot. The prefrontal cortex is analyzing the story's logic. The mirror neuron system may even fire as you empathize with characters. This is not 10%. It's a symphony of regions coordinating in real time to create your conscious experience. But let's dig deeper. The brain is divided into several lobes, each with its own specialties. The frontal lobe is involved in decision-making, planning, and social behavior. The parietal lobe handles spatial orientation and sensory input. The temporal lobe deals with memory, language, and auditory information, and the occipital lobe is dedicated to visual processing. Meanwhile, structures like the cerebellum manage balance and coordination, and the brainstem controls autonomic functions like breathing and heart rate. Then there's the limbic system, which is the seat of emotion, memory, and motivation. All of these regions are active throughout the day depending on your behavior, environment, and internal states. But if we already use all of this, why do so many people feel like they're not tapping into their full potential? That's the real heart of the matter. Because while every part of your brain is in use, most people never learn to use it well. This is where the myth hits a psychological nerve. We sense that we could be sharper, more focused, more creative. And we're right. Not because there's untapped gray matter, but because we're not optimizing how we use what we have. Enter neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to change itself based on experience. This is one of the most groundbreaking discoveries in neuroscience over the past century. For a long time, scientists believed the brain was hardwired by adulthood. Today, we know it's malleable throughout life. Every time you learn something new, form a memory, or practice a skill, your brain physically changes. New synapses form, existing connections strengthen, and underused ones fade away. Your brain literally rewires itself according to how you live. And this is where real transformation happens. Let's look at real-world examples. In London, taxi drivers are required to memorize an incredibly complex map of the city's streets. Neuroscientists found that their hippocampus, the region associated with spatial memory, was significantly larger than average. Musicians who practice regularly show enhanced connectivity between motor regions and auditory areas. Meditators demonstrate thickening in areas related to attention and emotional regulation. These people didn't discover unused parts of their brain. They trained what they already had and reshaped it in the process. Now think about the average day for most people. Constant distraction, fragmented focus, shallow engagement, notifications, multitasking, doom scrolling. All of that is training. Your brain too, but in the wrong direction. Attention is a muscle. Focus is a habit. If you never challenge your brain deeply, it adapts to that baseline. It becomes wired for noise instead of depth. So the question isn't, how can I access more of my brain? The real question is, how do I engage more deeply with the parts I already use? Because deep focus, creative insight, emotional intelligence, memory retention, these are all skills you can cultivate. And here's something else to consider. Your beliefs about your brain affect how it functions. This is called the neuropsychology of mindset. People who believe intelligence is fixed tend to avoid challenges, give up easily, and underperform. Those who believe the brain can grow are more resilient, curious, and motivated. This isn't just psychological. It's neurological. Belief drives behavior. Behavior shapes wiring. Wiring changes performance. So let's shatter the myth once and for all. You are not limited by some imaginary 10% ceiling. You are using your whole brain every day. But how you use it, that's where your power lies. You can choose to scroll passively or to read something that challenges you. You can drown in noise or build the capacity for silence. You can consume content endlessly or create something original. You can ruminate on fear or reflect with clarity. Your brain responds to what you feed it. So here's the invitation. Stop waiting for a secret key to unlock your mind. You already have the key. It's attention, it's effort, it's intention. And if you commit to using your brain, not just all of it, but the best of it, you'll discover that there's no limit to what you can learn, create, and become. The myth isn't that we don't use 100% of our brain. The myth is that we ever needed more than that to be extraordinary. You already have the most powerful tool in the known universe. The only question is, what will you do with it?